Want to know how to free up the space for HVAC panels and cabinets in your wood framing panel? If that's you, let me know below. Today I'm breaking down how to fit it all without breaking a sweat. And by the way, we'll share our own dynamic script with those who will try to guess in the comments how many times bananas changed its location throughout the video. Hi, my name is Vlada, I'm the framing detailer at New Vision Agency and I've been working on wood and steel framing on more than 50 projects. Types of opening for equipment. When you're working with wood framing, especially when you are doing prefabrication, it's super important to have your MEPF systems fully coordinated. Why? Well, let me show you. Here's what happens when the model doesn't account for HVAC. And here's what it looks like when it does. Trying to do prefab without proper coordination? That's a recipe for clashes and rework on site. A lot of wasted time, increased costs, and way too many people scrambling to fix this. Nobody wants that. So, when we start working on a project, one of the first things we do is to collect all the models we need for proper coordination. The key here is knowing what systems you're coordinating with, like HVAC, plumbing, and other equipment. Also, think about fire extinguisher cabinets, medicine cabinets, electrical and data panels, or even media panels. Now, at the beginning of a project, we usually get some kind of layout, but it might not be completely accurate. That's where the mechanical team comes in. If you're watching this, please share your 3D models. Having 3D MEPF models make it so much easier to get the coordination right and really reduces field adjustments. Coordination is such an important and time-consuming part of the project. And there are a few things you've got to keep in mind. First off, hit that like button below and subscribe to the channel. It's the only way your panels will get along with MEPF. Just kidding. Now let's get down to the real points. For example, knowing where you need exact rough opening size and where you can be a bit more flexible. Grill openings? They've got to be precise so everything fits perfectly. But for things like round or rectangular ductwork and HVAC pipes, you've got some wiggle room. You can shift them a few inches as long as there's enough space to work. Oh, and don't forget about gypsum wallboard. If your layout says a 12 by 18 rough opening size, make sure to add an extra 5/8 inch on each side so you can wrap it properly with gypsum board. Non-load bearing walls coordination. When it comes to the bearing capacity of walls, it's crucial to understand the difference between coordinating non-load bearing walls and load bearing walls. Let's start with non-load bearing walls. In these panels, there is less need for additional framing. The open bay for the system can be spread up to 19 inches without adding any extra studs. Just add blocking below the duct. If it exceeds 19 inches, you'll need to add cripples below. The stud spacing can also be adjusted to reduce the number of studs. For ducts, keeping the exact opening size isn't always necessary. In some cases, you can adjust the spacing to avoid clashing with the duct and extend the blocking to the nearest spacing stud. This means the rough opening might be slightly bigger than what's shown on the layout. On the flip side, it can also be reduced. The minimum required clearance from the rough opening to the duct is 1 inch to fit the duct insulation. However, I recommend keeping 2 inches just to be safe. Don't neglect this rule, otherwise the duct won't fit into the opening. And trust me, nothing ruins a good day on site like a duct that's too shy to squeeze through its opening. Load-bearing wall coordination. When coordinating load-bearing walls, the rules are a bit different. If the opening is up to 19 inches, it can be framed with blocking. But if it's larger, you'll need a structural header, trimmers and double seal to maintain the wall's bearing capacity. Some openings can be enlarged to reduce excessive studs, as long as the resulting bay is less than 19 inches wide. Just make sure to confirm these changes with the structural engineer. A common issue is ducts being too close together or positioned directly above the medicine cabinet. In these cases, you can merge opening into single, larger one. For example, here's a tricky situation. Multiply ducts in one wall alongside a medicine cabinet. You can enlarge the medicine cabinet opening and align it with the duct opening above. However, the adjacent opening should be fully framed with a structural header if it's too large. Always think about how these changes will work on the actual building site. As with non-load bearing walls, it's crucial to reduce the number of studs and avoid unnecessary framing when possible. For instance, here we can adjust the spacing to eliminate an unnecessary stud and blocking. The more studs you save, the happier your customer will be. Typical problems with MEPF and why it's important to do MEPF coordination. Alright, let's talk about one of the biggest issues you're probably going to face when coordinating MEPF in your project – clashes. And I'm talking about everything. Hold-downs, wood posts, kin studs, beams, and even HSS columns. This happens on most jobs, and the fix often comes down to moving the ducts around. Now, sometimes it's not a huge deal. If the duct clashes with the collector stud, it's usually not a problem to just shift it a few inches. But the real headache is when there is no room to move the duct at all. In those cases, you're going to need an RFI to move the duct or maybe even the grill opening to another location. Just imagine how much easier it would be to catch that issue in the model before you're out in the field trying to fix it, right? The second issue is too many ducts in shear walls. There are some strict size limits for opening in shear walls, and the ducts can easily push those limits. Again, catching this early and submitting an RFI can save you a lot of headaches down the line. Here's a tip. Openings in shear walls usually need to be reinforced with additional blocking. But sometimes we forget about this detail, so make sure to keep a close eye on those shear walls. Now, let's recap the main points from today's video. Reduce the number of studs where you can. Merge openings when systems are too close to each other. Make sure to account for gypsum board in the rough opening size. And of course, identify any clashes early on the project. If you don't agree with anything I've said, feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment below. But if you're on the board, just type "I love beam" and kittens. Let's see who's on the fast track to better coordination. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.